Andy Roddick had a brilliant career at the majors, a little less so at Roland Garros. Andy made 10 Grand Slam semis, 5 finals, and of course the title at the U.S. Open. But in 10 trips to Paris, Andy's deepest run was the 4th round back in 2009. He is to be commended for his unwavering desire to master the red clay. It was just a bit of an uphill battle, and we welcome Andy Roddick back to Tennis Channel Live. With that as a backdrop, sir, I will ask you, what was your relationship with Roland Garros and the red clay?
Never more awkward than to when I have to talk about it publicly on TV. But I'm going to have you introduce me at anything, anytime, anywhere from now on, Hibs, because that was about as generous as an intro as you could have possibly given me, given my crappy record at Roland Garros.
That's why we use the U.S. Open footage, Andy, just to put a nice little spin on it.
Oh gosh.
No, it made me feel better. Thank you.
Hey, Andy, I want to get your take on something we talked about earlier in the show about what the moves they're making to make things a little easier for the foreign athletes to travel into the United States, these exemptions. How do you think that may impact tennis as we move forward this summer?
Well, I think it's a good first step. I think it shows positive intent. Now, walking through the actual practices of how managing a baseball team of 25 or a basketball team of 12, obviously plus staff in a quasi-control environment. The NBA is talking about having everyone in one city in Orlando at Disney, and you can kind of control the metrics a little bit more. Tennis is a pretty unique challenge. I mean, 128 singles players, at least that many in doubles, qualifying, juniors, staffing, it adds up. I mean, you have thousands of people on site before you actually get to the players a lot of days. So I think it is a unique set of challenges. It's great that Governor Cuomo has said, listen, this is a priority. We need this back in our lives. That's a great first step, but I by no means is that a green light in my mind.
Another rumor that we've been hearing about is trying to keep the players that come from overseas either in one hotel, or the top players, every player only allow 2 guests on site if the tournament does happen. How does that affect the top players that are so used to traveling with teams? If the top players only get 2 guests that are allowed on site during a tournament, do they play? How does that go into their decision making?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything is based against an imperfect solution, right? So I think you have to take that into effect. Just because the players can't have people on site doesn't mean they can't go home and get physio, right? So that you can get your massage, you can get your treatment, you can have a training room set up. I think players might be allowed to stay outside as long as they're checking the proper protocols, meaning a verified doctor going through the proper protocols, temperature checks, testing, which is still an issue. Do we think that's all going to be fixed by the time it comes around? Is close quarters the best? And also you have to think about a locker room. I mean, 250 plus people sharing a space that I don't know what it is, 6,000 or 7,000 feet. That's close proximity. I even think, listen, if baseball doesn't happen, let's look at the stadium across the road for some locker room space. Let's think of trailers. Let's think. There's a lot more to it than just thinking about I actually think the guests of the players is probably the one thing that you can draw a hard line on that might not get pushed back against.
Andy, we're starting to see some events actually take place. We're talking about what may take place in the U.S. We're actually starting to see some events like the UTR matches down in Palm Beach. And we also saw some golf take place the last couple of weekends, including yesterday. And you weighed in a little bit on this one. I know you have a relationship with Peyton Manning. You guys are business partners at Sweetens Cove, the hat you keep pimping every day on the show here. But what was this with you and Brady? You were giving him some stick. What was this all about?
Yeah, no, thank you for pointing out my shameless tendencies. I embrace them. You know what? It was nothing else. It was old Tommy Terrific. Really, I mean, if he doesn't tell you that he was terrible in the first 6 holes, he's just lying to you. And then I tweeted something, and then we're seeing the swing that just said, "Shut up, Charles Barkley. Shut up, Andy on Twitter. Watch me hold this thing. Just pull the string, zip, and right in." And that's why he's won 6 Super Bowls. That's why he's better looking than the rest of us. It's not because of genetics. It's because under the gun, he drains one from 115. That's the solution, Jimbo.
Well, what about Peyton? You've played some golf with Peyton. You guys are buddies. How was his performance?
Yeah, I mean, he's solid. You know, he's the old problem solver. I think Tom probably has a little more juice off the tee when he's hitting it straight. I think he would tell you that's a big if. Peyton's the grinder. He's chopping up the course. I guarantee you he was studied. I think they actually took a picture of his scorecard from the practice round, of which he had 350 words that nobody else could read but him. But he was checking the dices. He knew what he was going to hit off every tee. He is nothing if not prepared, whether it's business or football or golf.
Okay, taking it back to tennis, we've had a couple of weekends of UTR events. First, the men a couple of weekends ago, the women this past weekend. What did you think with some of those innovations? The players calling their lines, having to get the balls themselves, kind of this new norm that pro tennis might have to start going to on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think the word that comes to mind is necessary. The good news is, from production, from the players, from kind of getting into it from a competitive standpoint, everything was better in this last version, this last weekend. So I think as players kind of deal with it and they are enthusiastic about getting out there, you can tell by when they step out and play that first match, it's kind of awkward. And then by the time they get to their second or third one, it's a better product. They're kind of getting into it a little bit. They're forgetting about all the weirdness, kind of getting back to basics and kind of the innocence of tennis, the parts we all love. It's imperfect. It's always going to be, but it's way better than nothing. And I think the more we learn about how to broadcast this, how to commentate on it, how to play in it, how to protect against the virus during these types of events, we're going to get better and better. Is it the solution that we need? Probably not. Is it a hell of a Band-Aid? Yes, it's great, and I love watching it.
By the way, if you're going to embrace your pimping, you want to at least tell people what the hat's for?
Yeah, it's a golf course in Tennessee. It's South Pittsburgh, Tennessee. It's the best vacation spot you could ever want. I mean, we didn't make it, but we bought in, and now we have a bourbon out. So drink up.